Something happened in the last 24 hours that most people are barely paying attention to, but it could reshape the entire global economy, send your gas prices through the roof, and pull the United States into one of the most dangerous escalation spirals the Middle East has ever seen. President Donald Trump just threatened to blow up the world's largest natural gas field. Not a metaphor, not political posturing. A direct, explicit threat warning that if Tehran dares to strike Qatar's energy infrastructure one more time, the United States of America will massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. So how did we get here? What exactly is South Pars? Why does it matter to you? And just how close is the world to a full-scale catastrophe? Buckle up. This is the full picture. This war between the United States, Israel, and Iran didn't start yesterday. It erupted on February 28th, 2026, when the U.S. and Israel launched a coordinated military campaign against Tehran. In just under 3 weeks, the conflict has already killed close to 1,450 Iranians, injured over 1,500 others, and claimed the lives of 17 people in Israel, with nearly 4,000 more injured. And the war quickly spread beyond borders. Lebanon was dragged in on March the 2nd when Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful proxy, attacked Israel in retaliation for U.S.-Israeli strikes. Israel responded with intense airstrikes on Lebanese territory and ground operations in the south. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which roughly one-fifth of the world's entire oil supply passes, has been effectively shut down by Iranian forces. Think about that for a second. 20% of the planet's oil bottlenecked, gone from the market. And the consequences are already being felt at every gas station in America. Before the war, Brent crude oil sat at around $70 to $72 per barrel. By this week, it has surged past $115 per barrel, a staggering 40 to 60% increase in just weeks. The national average for a gallon of gas in the United States has already hit $3.88, up from under $3 just a month ago. And analysts warn this is only the beginning. On Wednesday, March 18th, Israel made a move that dramatically escalated this conflict, one that has sent shockwaves through every energy market on the planet. Israeli forces struck South Pars, the world's single largest natural gas reserve. The field sits offshore in the Persian Gulf, straddling the maritime boundary between Iran and Qatar. On Iran's side, it's called South Pars. On Qatar's side, the very same reservoir is called the North Dome. Together, they hold an estimated 51 trillion cubic meters of natural gas, enough to supply the entire world's needs for roughly 13 years. It is also Iran's most critical source of domestic energy, powering, heating, electricity, and an industry for millions of Iranian civilians. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed Israel acted alone in striking the facility. He denied any coordination with the United States. In a press conference this week, Netanyahu declared that Israel has changed the Middle East beyond recognition, calling Israel a regional and, in some areas, even a global power. Trump initially told the world the U.S. knew nothing about the Israeli strike. But here's where it gets complicated. Axios, citing a U.S. defense official and 2 senior Israeli officials, reported that Washington and Tel Aviv actually coordinated on the attack. A separate source told the Associated Press that Washington was informed of Israel's plans beforehand, though it's unclear if the U.S. explicitly approved them. The White House did not immediately respond to questions on the matter. Whatever the internal politics, Iran's response was immediate and brutal. Tehran wasted no time. In retaliation for the South Pars strike, Iran launched a sweeping offensive against energy infrastructure across the entire Gulf region, hitting U.S. allies on multiple fronts simultaneously. Qatar bore the worst of it. Iran fired ballistic missiles directly at Ras Laffan Industrial City, one of the world's largest liquefied natural gas export terminals. The strikes caused, in Qatar Energy's own words, extensive damage. Emergency teams were deployed to contain fires at the site. 2 LNG production facilities, joint ventures with ExxonMobil, were struck. The Pearl Gas to Liquids facility, which has a production sharing agreement with Shell, was also hit. Qatar's energy minister confirmed the strikes reduced the nation's LNG export capacity by 17%, the estimated cost in lost annual revenue, a staggering $20 billion, and it could take up to 5 years to fully repair the damage. Qatar has now halted all gas production, meaning global supply chains for both LNG and fertilizer are under severe strain. But Iran didn't stop at Qatar. Saudi Arabia reported intercepting 4 ballistic missiles launched toward Riyadh, as well as a drone attack on a gas facility in the country's east. The UAE intercepted missiles aimed at the Habshan gas facilities and the Bab oil field, both of which were temporarily shut down. Kuwaiti oil refineries and gas units were struck. Even Bahrain reported attacks. Iran's parliament speaker responded to global condemnation by warning an enemy attack on Iranian oil infrastructure means suicide for them. The equation as of an eye for an eye is in place, and a new level of conflict has begun. The Gulf is on fire, literally and economically. And with the situation spiraling, President Trump took to Truth Social with a statement that sent a chill through diplomatic circles around the world. He declared that Israel would not attack the South Pars gas field again. But then came the threat. If Iran, in Trump's words, unwisely decides to attack Qatar, the United States will massively blow up the entirety of the South Pars gas field at an amount of strength and power that Iran has never seen or witnessed before. He said this would happen with or without the help or consent of Israel. Trump added that he does not want to authorize this level of violence and destruction because of the long-term implications that it will have on the future of Iran, but that if Qatar's LNG infrastructure is hit again, he will not hesitate to do so. He simultaneously condemned Iran's strikes on Qatar as unjustifiable and unfair, calling Qatar a very innocent nation. Meanwhile, in the same week, Trump confirmed the Pentagon is requesting a massive $200 billion in additional wartime funding, calling it a small price to pay to equip the U.S. military. The U.S. is also accelerating the deployment of thousands more Marines and sailors to the Middle East. U.S. Central Command confirmed that American forces have already struck more than 90 targets on Iran's oil-producing Karg Island, employed multiple 5,000-pound deep penetrator munitions on hardened Iranian missile sites near the Strait of Hormuz and are actively hunting Iranian boats in the strait. This is not a conflict on the margins. The United States is deeply, actively engaged. The economic and diplomatic ripple effects of this conflict are already enormous, and they are accelerating. Global benchmark Brent crude hit $115 per barrel on Thursday. Asian stock markets tanked. Japan's Nikkei fell 2.7%. South Korea's Kospi dropped 2.6%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng lost 1.4%. U.S. stocks took a beating midweek amid inflation concerns. The World Trade Organization has already warned that if energy prices remain elevated through 2026, global trade growth could be slashed significantly, with Asia and Europe, the regions most dependent on energy imports, hit hardest. Here's a twist most people aren't talking about. Russia is financially benefiting from this war. Iran's chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz has sent global energy prices sky high, and Russia, one of the world's largest oil exporters, is cashing in. In a striking move, the U.S. Treasury even issued a 30-day sanctions waiver on Russian energy sales, allowing Russia to sell oil already loaded onto tankers. Whether it helps stabilize markets or simply hands Moscow a windfall remains deeply contested. And in the diplomatic front, French President Emmanuel Macron demanded an immediate halt to all targeting of civilian infrastructure. Saudi Arabia's foreign minister said what little trust there was before with Iran has completely been shattered. A joint statement from 12 nations, including Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Pakistan, and Qatar condemned the escalation. Qatar, for its part, declared Iranian military and security attachés at the Iranian embassy in Doha persona non grata, ordering them to leave the country within 24 hours. The diplomatic rupture between Tehran and Doha is now essentially complete. And yet, despite all of it, Iran's regime appears to be holding. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard told the U.S. Senate this week. that while the Iranian government is largely degraded, it appears to be intact. An analyst told CNN bluntly, Iranian leadership is nowhere near the brink of collapse. Here's the bottom line. The world is watching a war that started on February 28th rapidly expand into something far larger, far more dangerous, and far more economically destructive than most analysts anticipated. Energy infrastructure across the Middle East is being systematically dismantled. The Strait of Hormuz, the jugular vein of global oil supply, remains effectively closed. Gas prices for ordinary Americans are rising every single week. The question now is whether Trump's ultimatum holds Iran back, or whether Tehran, backed into a corner, decides to escalate further and force the United States to make good on the most dramatic threat a sitting president has made in decades. South Pars is not just a gas field. It is the backbone of Iran's economy and the lifeline of its citizens. Destroying it would be an act of war on a scale the region has never seen. And Trump has said he will do it. The next 48 to 72 hours could determine whether this war stays regional or goes truly global. If you found this video valuable, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story is far from over and we will keep you updated every step of the way.